All right. Let's get this Q&A session started. Let's talk about language learning. Got a bunch of questions here that you sent me, and I'm going to start with Véronique. I guess that's French, right? How to revive a language you haven't used in years, and what are your thoughts about services to speak with someone like Preply, italki, etc. Thank you. Okay, two questions. How to revive a language you haven't used in years. This is a common thing, and a lot of people tell me that they have forgotten a language completely. That is never the case. If you haven't used a language for years, which has happened to me before, I just stopped using a language, and what will happen is, I mean, it will depend on how good you were at that language before, right? If you learned a language to a very basic level, you will forget a lot. It will still be there somewhere, right? And then you can refresh it, you revive it, right? But it will be much easier to do if you already got to a relatively fluent level and you understand the language easily and you can speak it relatively fluently, or you could speak it relatively fluently. If you were at a decent level and then you stopped using it completely, it will come back pretty fast. It did happen to me like last year, I think, when I was in I was visiting a friend in the south of Germany, and I hadn't spoken Romanian in a really long time. Maybe apart from some video I did at some point, but apart from that, I hadn't spoken Romanian probably in over a year. And we were in a bar and started talking to people. I was talking like French with this guy, and then this and that, and Russian, and suddenly I overheard some Romanian, and my mate was like, "Don't you speak Romanian?" And I was like, "True, I'd actually forgotten that I speak Romanian." And I just started talking to them, and it's kind of weird in the beginning, but then after a few minutes, it just comes back if your level was decent. Now, a good routine to revive a language: simply do whatever you were doing before, whatever works. Like what works to learn a language from scratch or to go from intermediate to advanced level also works for reviving a language. So let's say you haven't used a language that you used to speak, you haven't used it for years. First of all, you should start listening to the language daily because it's the easiest thing to do. And even if you are very rusty, after a few, I was going to say hours, but probably a few minutes of listening, it will all start coming back. But if you start listening to it like half an hour a day or something, it will mostly come back very quickly. Um, and for speaking, of course, listening and speaking are different things. You should just start talking to yourself. Start reading aloud, start shadowing, and start just talking to yourself. And very quickly, if you do those two things, listen to the language regularly and speak to yourself a little bit regularly, it all comes back very quickly, and you get even better than you used to be if you're consistent with it. So really not complicated. Just the same things that you need to do to learn a language. Just do more of that to revive it. And question number two was, what are your thoughts on services to speak with someone? Like I don't really know how Preply works. I've never used it. italki. My advice with that is to use it if as a as a reward instead of the main way to learn a language. I've made this mistake before, and I'm sure a lot of you are still making it. Try to learn a language by just booking a lot of hours of italki and just talk to someone daily, like 1 or 2 hours a day. And yeah, you will learn, but you will not learn as fast as if you just learn sentences, a lot of sentences. Because what happens in a lot of those sessions, if you're at a very basic level, it's different if you are at already at an intermediate level and you understand well and you know a lot of vocab. That's different. But when you're starting from scratch, most of the time it'll be just the teacher explaining something in English mostly, or whatever your native language, because you don't understand the language you're trying to learn. and they'll teach you single words or how to say this and that, and that will be really slow, and you'll be trying to you won't say much in that hour or whatever you booked, whatever period of time you booked, and it'll just be very inefficient. Yeah, you'll feel like you're improving because you're talking to someone, and okay, today I could say a little bit more than yesterday. Yeah, you get that dopamine hit of talking to someone, but what I recommend is, and yeah, talking to people is always good and it's exciting. What I recommend is, and I should probably do more of it myself, just to keep it more fun, because I just do like really mechanically these days. But 4 or 5 sessions of drills and one session of talking to tutor online. What do I mean by that? Well, book a lesson on Friday or Saturday or whatever, and the rest of the day, like the previous 4 or 5 days, you work on your sentences hard. Like you read, listen, and repeat those sentences over and over. Everything you want to be able to say in that session, all right? And you focus like to do focused work on learning a few hundred sentences that you specifically, either sentences that you want to use in general or in that specific session. And then once you're talking to that person, you'll be able to speak way more, like infinitely more than just doing like speaking to that person today and then tomorrow again and the day after that again, because you end up talking about similar things, like how's everything going, what did you do today, blah blah. Like if you prep a lot of sentences and you drill them, like you do all the usual stuff that I always recommend: listen, repeat, a lot of like lots and lots of repetition, you'll be able to then speak much better. You'll be much more enjoyable and much more effective. So they're good. In fact, I should just do more of it myself. Um, I should do more of it because I forget to book them. Honestly, I just so caught up in my daily routine. But then I really enjoy when I do it. But it's one of those things that I should do more of it. Just I keep like forgetting to do it. But it should be a reward. It shouldn't be the main way to learn. All right. And if you want to do it daily, you can do it daily. But if, for example, like some people want to learn full time, yeah, then do it daily. Spend 3 or 4 hours drilling sentences and listening and doing all of that, and then talk to someone. Yeah, after drilling, after like the once you've got the ammo for the for the conversation. All right, Mr. Diploma Swag says, "Do you have videos on your exact study routines?" Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I just started a new channel, a second channel, in which I'll speak the rest of the languages that aren't English, and also I'm showing the whole process of my learning process of different languages. I just record myself learning, doing different exercises, often with like zero explanation. Just I just do it on camera, and you can just learn alongside with me, or you can at least take a look at what I'm doing and then do it on your own. But it'll be in a second channel because that is uh, the algorithm hates that stuff, and it was when I was doing all sorts of different things on this channel, I noticed that it was hurting the reach of the channel by doing that kind of stuff. I was posting too many videos apparently. Some of you really like those videos, a lot of you, but but they were only watched by like the same amount, like the same people over and over again. And I could see every time I experimented doing something like this, like the Learn with Me videos or anything like that, I could notice not only those videos not getting any traction, but also the following videos, the following few days, also not getting any traction because the algorithm was punishing me for that, punishing the channel. So I'm going to put all of that in a second channel. Um, the link is in the description. Just if you're really into that stuff, you want to watch me study, or you want to watch me speak other languages, or the same style of videos but speaking other languages, I'm going to put all of that there, and I'm just going to speak English in this channel and mostly just talk about language learning. But anything experimental will be there, so that I don't shoot myself in the foot, right? Um, Colin Wian says, "How do you handle burnout?" I don't. The sentences method is not super enjoyable, and I find myself getting burnt out. Yeah, that can happen. It's not exactly like this is super hard work. This is what you need to do to get results, but it's also not the most fun thing to do. So, what I often recommend my students is to take a break. And if you're learning lots of sentences, you're just doing lots of drills, do the thing that takes the least effort for a few days. You've got the audio files, just listen to them while doing something else, listen to them while working out, go for walks while listening to them, do, uh, yeah, even like when you're chilling, just doze on the sofa while listening to them and do nothing else. Just stop trying to study vocab, so stop doing anything that requires reading or like speaking aloud, anything like that. Just listen, get some listening every day, and you're still getting some reps. Yeah, with those sentence lists that you're trying to learn, if you take a break like for 7 days, you only listen to the materials, you're not really damaging your learning. Like, you're just delaying it a little bit, but when you get back to it, you'll have a few more reps of having listened to all of that, and it'll be easier for you to uh, get back to it. When once you start, like, you'll be motivated again, and all those reps will count. So keep just listening, and also just listen to authentic content, even if you don't understand much. Just listen to podcasts, radio, things like that. In the background, do nothing else. If you start getting burnt out, just listen to the language. That's it for a few days, and eventually motivation will come back. um Burnout myself, like, my problem is usually not that, it's lack of focus because I've got ADHD. So I often just waste a lot of time by doing other things, or like I'm trying to learn but I get distracted, like checking emails or whatever comments. So the only burnout I get is from like getting too frustrated of not being productive enough by getting distracted a lot. So for me, just take a quick break, like do something else that relaxes me, and then go get back to it and do like actual deep work in the thing, and then I feel great. So I never like burn out for days or weeks. The only time that I had like proper burnout ever in my life was not with language learning. This was when I was working as a translator. I, for those of you who don't know, I've got a master's degree in professional translation, and I used to work as a professional translator. So basically, they send you massive walls of text, and you have to translate them into another language. And I used to do that with like German into Spanish, German into Basque, English into Spanish, and so on, English into Basque as well. And I had a big project by Google, because now you can. My native language is very. It's a minority language, and not a lot of people speak it, and even fewer people can professionally translate it. And I'm one of those few people. And they wanted to, like, you can now use Google. I don't, because every time I have to check something, like, the instructions are in English, and I rather use it in English. But Google added Basque as one of the languages you can have all your, like, in the settings, so everything's in Basque. But somebody needed to translate all of that into Basque so that you can use YouTube in Basque and do Google, everything. And yeah, so I worked for Google for a summer, and it was a massive amount of work, huge, like hundreds of pages of text to translate, 12 hours a day, every day, Monday to like Sunday. And I could, like, my friends were going to the beach, or the pool, and I was just at home, just hating myself. Pay was really good, but like after that, it was just after that summer, I was like, I'm not doing translation anymore. I got paid really well, but it was like, no, it's not worth it. Um, and yeah, there was a point where I just like couldn't, just like I was trying to go to sleep and was just like seeing the texts and the like. Yeah, it was just horrible. So yeah, burnout is a thing. If you're feeling burnt out, just you know take a break. That's it. From language learning, no, I don't think. I mean, unless your regular work is really stressful already, maybe. But from language learning alone, it's highly unlikely that you'll burn out. Um, can you make a video of you speaking every language you've learned in one video? I've done it before. I could do it again. The only problem with that is that YouTube can add automatic subtitles to a video in another language, or even dubbing these days. But I don't think it does it still if the video is in different languages. So I'd have to then manually add subtitles, and that's like the translation work I was talking about. That it wasn't fun. It was an insane amount of work. That's that. Like adding subtitles to a video takes an insane amount of time and work. You'd be surprised if you've never done it before. I've done it as well for work as a professional translator. And like a minute of video takes. It's not a minute writing stuff. It's like 10 minutes of work per minute of video. So uh, it is a lot of work to just type all of that. And again, is it really worth it? I might make videos speaking several languages in the second channel and with no subtitles. But just like improvise and speak on the go. Could probably do that. I'll probably start doing that. But don't expect subtitles because it's just an insane amount of work to do that, and I've got better things to do. Um, Diana says, any resource recommendations for learning European Portuguese? Um, the vocab lists, that's the sentence list I've got, your own language islands, all the stuff I always recommend. Just make sure that European Portuguese, like use AI to translate and specify that you want European Portuguese. DeepL translates well into European Portuguese or ChatGPT or anything like that. And then resources like TTS Maker have European Portuguese audio, so you can use those. Apart from that, if you want to listen to stuff, I think it's Portuguese with Leo, which is pretty good. Uh, as a like listen, like learn by listening and all that. But you know my opinion on all that stuff. That should be a secondary thing. Your learning should be through like learning your own lines first and foremost. If you've got one of those podcasts or YouTube channels like Portuguese with Leo, you want to listen to regularly and just like to learn about the culture and get a lot of inputs, yeah, do it. But learn your own lines. Again, you can translate them into European Portuguese specifically, and then create audio files for European Portuguese as well with TTS Maker, for example. Um, uh, but again, my own Portuguese, for example, it's a weird mix, and I don't really think it's that important to uh, uh, which accent you are listening to, because I learned. I've never been to Brazil. I've been to Portugal because it's like I mean Spain, right? It's very close. So I've been several times to Portugal. I love going there. So that's the one I learned first. But then started most of the content online is in Brazilian Portuguese. So I started listening to that one. Then I started training jiu-jitsu with a guy from Brazil who is from the north of Brazil, who has a very different accent, actually in some ways closer to European Portuguese than sorry, it's the battery was about to die. Um, yeah, it's from Maceió, which is in the north, and a lot of characteristics of the accent are more similar to European Portuguese than to like what a typical what people understand as a typical Brazilian accent, like the southern, like Sao Paulo, Rio accent. So my accent's all over the place, and you know what? It's really not a problem. So yeah, if you want to learn specifically European Portuguese, you can. You translate with AI into European Portuguese. You use text to speech specifically for European Portuguese, and you do input as well with that kind of content. But I wouldn't worry too much about that. And the same thing goes for people learning Spanish. Just learn Spanish first, just general Spanish, and then focus on this or that accent specifically that you want to develop. Or like even for English, right? Like, do you want to listen to only British English? Uh, I think my English is also all over the place because my accent tends to be more British, but then pronunciation. But like I say, car and corner, not car and corner, butter, language learning. Like I couldn't like hello there, Steve Kaufman here. Like, like just the nasal stuff, I just can't do it. But my vocabulary tends to mostly be American because I've also been exposed to a lot of mostly American content, right? So it's really, unless you want to, unless you're a spy or something and you want to pretend to be a local, it's not a big problem. The like this, I think people focus way too much on specific accents when it's really not that important. Like developing good pronunciation is important, but only learning like one specific accent and only that accent is really not important. I like cheesecake. I like cheese. Me too. Says, when did you start your language learning journey? What was your native language? At what age did you start to learn a new language? All right. When did I start learning? It's a tricky question because, I mean, technically, my second native language is not really my native language. I never spoke it at home. I'm talking about Spanish. I never spoke it with my friends. I started getting Spanish classes when I was, well, like 5 in school. But of course, the Basque country is in Spain, so we get a lot of Spanish TV and things like that. So I was already getting exposed to a lot of Spanish because most of TV was in Spanish and the media and everything. So I guess when I was around 5, um, but probably earlier because I was already exposed to Spanish TV basically from when I was born, even if I wasn't speaking it because there was this one channel in Basque. So yeah, like speaking in real life, not until I was like, so in a classroom at 5, I started learning Spanish. Watching TV or listening to TV all my life. Like basically, as a toddler, I was already listening to Spanish, but no one was speaking it around me. Then English when I was like 8 classes, but then only started speaking Spanish regularly when I was like, well, 12, like middle school. When we went to a bigger town and there was a lot of Spanish speaking kids there, and English when I was like 18 or something in uni. Um, but yeah, classes very early on. Native language again, Basque. Yeah, I think I'm what age. I answered that already. By the way, if you like cheesecake, there's a really really good cheesecake bar here in San Sebastian. It's called La Viña. People queue there to get the cheesecake. It's famous. Okay, drizzle dry. Do you think we need to necessarily consider other aspects like cognitive functions, brain health, etc., when learning languages? Especially when our goal is to achieve fluency. Thanks. I don't really know what to answer to that because do all those things matter? Yes. Do we need to consider them? Like if you're learning a language, those things affect your learning, right? Your brain health, how well you're sleeping, etc. All those things, cognitive functions. But what can you do about it that much? Okay, you can sleep better, but again, if we're talking about whatever mental problems you've got, so like, I'm really not a scientist. I don't know much about that, but if you've got issues with that, just go get them. Go get them. Well, maybe not fixed, but do what you can to get better with that. But again, for your own planning, I don't know how much you can do. And I don't really know what exact things you're talking about either. And even if you were specific, like, okay, I've got, I don't know, I'm dyslexic, or like, I have no idea how that works. So, yeah, if you've got anything like that, get, yeah, get help and like look up how exactly it affects your learning. Definitely, if you've got any condition or any like mental issues or brain whatever, it will affect your learning. But I can't really give you advice on that because I don't know about the topic and I don't know the situation either. All right, Jorge Sanchez says, "Who are we? Do you expect me to give you some esoteric, like metaphysical answer? Because I'm really not into that stuff. So I'm not your prophet or guru or anything like that. You do what you do. I'm here to give you language learning advice and nothing else." Peace says, "Did you learn all those languages you know using the methods that you share? No. Or you have other methods?" Yes, I keep a bunch of methods that I've never talked about. They're all secret. You need to buy my course. No, so basically, did I learn all my languages using these methods? No, because these methods that I use now are the result of decades of experience and experimenting and research and reading about it. So a lot of the learning I was doing it while developing. I mean, the goal. I didn't start with the goal of developing like the best language learning system in the world. No, I just started learning languages. Well, because I had to in school, but then I was once I decided like I want to learn language. I like languages, and I want to speak these languages, and I want to understand them. And I got really frustrated with what I was doing because it wasn't working, the classes and all of that. And I just started like trying new things, looking up, just looking for something better. Like, I kept looking for more and more things. Like, how can I solve this problem? How can I learn words faster? How can I improve my comprehension? How can I improve my whatever? So I did all of that while I was learning them. So obviously, a lot of the learning happened before I developed a lot of these methods, or while when I had developed some of these methods, but not others. So what's like, if you had to put it all in a timeline, using these methods I use right now, maybe like half the languages, maybe the other half. I mean, native language, second native language, basically Spanish, English from. I mean, school. Nobody else almost. Like, very few people learned English to a decent level in school. It was terrible. It was so bad, like, really bad. It's. I'm not kidding. Most people who went to school with me, some of them ended up passing like B2 exams and stuff in English after like a decade, but they can't speak. They can't have a 5 minute conversation. That's why that stuff like the B1, B2, C1, it's very, it can be very deceiving because people. I've had students when I was teaching business English. I had business people was working for big companies, and like this like fat cat who was like this big important guy, project manager, is going to Vegas to work in some like whatever thing they were doing there, big industrial thing, and official level was A2, which is pretty low. But the guy could just like speak all day in English with a bad accent and lots of mistakes, but he could speak all day and he could conduct business in English. While people with B1, even B1, B2, and even like C1 levels officially, and they just struggle to speak. So yeah, it's complicated. But again, um, you try all of this for yourself, and if it doesn't work, you try something else. Um, it works for me. It works for anyone who's disciplined and does the work. This always works, but you have to do it. All right. Digital Nomads Explore says, isn't reading native like dialogues with a native very effective? Don't you get to see vocabulary in context, grammar, and you can practice pronunciation too? Thoughts? Reading native like dialogues with a native, so you have an actual native speaker with you reading them. Is that what you mean? Because that sounds complicated. You have to get someone to read it for you and to read it with you. Sounds good, but you have like every time you need someone there. Like one of the main ideas in my learning system is that you don't need anyone. You're self-sufficient. You can do it at any point, whenever you want to learn. If you've got your phone, you can keep learning the language. If you're depending on a native speaker, you're already limiting yourself a lot. Um, and I noticed this when I started doing a lot of language exchanges online. So we do half an hour of Spanish and half an hour of German, whatever, and people would just not show up half the time. It's insane. Like, yeah. So either you pay someone all the time to show up and help you like reading those native like dialogues, or you're going to miss half the sessions. And even then, like it's what like a session a day. That's already a lot. To I have to like bring someone over all the time, or have to even people are not dependable in the most for the most part. Like, and if you like some of you have your own businesses, you'll notice a lot of people are not dependable. They just won't unless you're paying them for it. They'll not show up. Um, Even if you're paying them for it, they won't show up often. So yeah, reading native like dialogue with a native speaker, yeah, that's why. But you can use text to speech audio, and you can write those dialogues, or you can have AI write those dialogues, and then you can read them and listen to them, and basically you're doing what I tell you to do, but like the system I'm teaching you to do, but without having to bring someone over or having to needing a native speaker to be there. So yeah, that's basically it. Native speakers, like the more you speak to them, the better, but you shouldn't depend on them because often they won't be there for you. Trad Guy Travels says, should we make sentences conversational style like shown in this video, or is it generating non conversation or the sentences about your personally preferred topics fine? Do they have to be like you're speaking with another person, or can they just be useful standalone sentences? Is what I mean. You can do both, and in fact, you should probably do both. What I usually recommend and what I do myself is to have different styles of sentences, different lists, and for different purposes. So for topics, what I do is just write everything about a specific topic and just sentence after sentence for that specific topic. Could be in a logical order, like I was born in this place in this year, and then describe the place. It could be like that, or just random sentences. In the end, it doesn't really matter that much because if you get enough repetition with them, you learn them anyway. But if there's a logical order to the conversation, like what's your name? My name is Mika. Where are you from? I'm from this place. It's going to be easier for you to learn them if there's a logical order to them, like questions and answers, or like simulating a real conversation. But also, you want to be able to give out an opinion, which is not giving an opinion or telling a story or things like that, where you just talk for a while, like 30 seconds or a minute. That'll be 10, 20, 50 sentences maybe of you just like about the topic. Just write the whole thing. And you could also, on a separate list, just learn standalone sentences, like you say. You could do it all, and you should probably do it all. The more variety, the better. Like standalone sentences, as of you write down everything. You can do it from input as well. You keep adding sentences that you hear or you read that sound useful or things that occur to you. I'd like to be able to say this exact thing. Okay, you add it to the list, and it'll be a list of unrelated sentences, but they're all useful. So yeah, all of it combined, like simulated conversations plus paragraphs, entire paragraphs on specific topics to tell stories or talk about the topic that you like to talk about, and then also like lists of standalone sentences that are useful on their own. Baransok, where's the name from? I can't really, I can't really locate that. Like, what's Baransok Miner? Baransok Miner? Do you think age is a problem when it comes to language learning? I get this question a lot. I got someone asking in the comments the other day if 43 was already too old. No. So the short answer is no. Age is not a problem. The long answer is yes, your mental and physical capabilities decline as you age, but it's not a big problem. All right. You can think that you're too old to learn a language at 20, and I've been told this, like, you want to start learning German in your 20s? Like, are you crazy? You need to start as a kid. People who told me that, they still don't speak any foreign languages. I do. So, and like you see people like Steve Kaufman, who, like, the guy speaks whatever, like 57 languages. Keeps learning. Most of them he learned after retiring. Um, so yeah, you can keep learning languages. Age is not a huge issue unless you've got severe health issues or something. But yeah, your memory is not as good as at 60 as it was at 20. Okay, that's probably true. But if you are consistent and you learn regularly and you do effective learning, yeah, you will learn anyway, right? Just a little bit more slowly. But how much more slow? How much does your ability to learn decline? Like, let's obviously this is completely unscientific, but let's say like, it declines after 30. It declines by 1% every year. Okay, so when you're 40, you're still what 80% as effective or 90% as effective as you were when you were 30. You still, like, if you do the work, you learn instead of 10 words, you learn 8 or 9. Okay, is it that bad? No. If you do effective work consistently, you learn at any age. Simon Halna says, "When are you gonna start calling Duolingo Drulingo?" Uh, right now. From now on, it gets called Drulingo, together with Drul in Spanish. Cube Formula says, "Do you think learning two or more languages?" Oh, this is another question I get all the time. Do you think learning two or more languages at the same time is ineffective? And what do you think is the maximum amount before it comes too much? Thanks. By the way, I've learned so many words because of you. Thanks. Um, is it ineffective? It can be, but it's doable if you've got the time and if you are consistent and you dedicate time every day or regularly at least to both languages or three or as many languages as you want. As long as you spend time with all of the languages regularly, you will improve. Of course, learning, if you got an hour a day, learning one language in that hour, and in that hour will be, you'll make a lot more progress than if you try to learn four languages in an hour every day, of course. But two languages, three languages, if you've got a lot of time, like 4 or 5 hours a day, Yeah, you can and you will improve in all of them at the same time if you do it right. And I'm going to give you the right way of doing it as well. So if you're learning two or three or even more languages, the best thing you can do is to first of all plan your learning. Like when are you going to listen to all of the languages? Make sure you listen to all of them. And then when you're going to spend some time learning the sentences you need to learn and all of that. But it's especially useful to use language islands for this. The same sentences, like you prepare your language islands, and then you translate them into both languages or into all three languages. And this way, especially if you're learning two or three languages that are similar to each other, let's say you're learning Spanish, Italian, and French. They're all relatively similar to each other. You could, and you probably will, make mistakes, and you will that will lead to some confusion. Like learning languages that are very similar to each other, you'll end up using Spanish words when speaking Italian, or like Italian words when speaking French. It will happen. But if you learn the exact same lines through a lot of repetition in all three languages, this will, well, first of all, it'll be much easier to learn those lines because if you have 300 sentences of language islands to learn and you review them in Spanish and you read and listen and repeat them aloud, and then right after that you do it in French. First of all, you will already know the sentences because you just worked on those sentences, so you're doing it with exactly the same thing. So without even looking at the English, those French sentences you'll understand them in context easily because you're familiar with the content, right? But also, once you've got enough repetition in both languages or in all three languages, you will start noticing the once you understand the content, you will start paying a lot more attention to the form with enough reps, and you start noticing all the differences in pronunciation, in vocabulary, in uh, grammar, little things that change from one language to the other. So that if you learn the same sentences in both or all three languages with a lot of repetition, you'll learn to distinguish. You learn all the differences between the languages, so you learn not to mix up the languages when you're using them. Does that make sense? So if you're learning two languages that are similar, even if you're learning three languages that are completely different, right? It's still good to learn with the same sentences, your language islands translated. But if you do it with if you're learning languages that are very similar to each other, it's especially useful to use language islands. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, it's doable. It's obviously half the time for each language if you're using the same amount of time. Like if you've got an hour a day for two languages instead of an hour a day for one language, you'll make half the progress, but you'll still make progress if you're consistent. And uh, again, if you use your own materials, use your own sentences translated, and you listen to them and all of that, you will make progress in all well, in both or in all three or four languages eventually. Um, so yeah, it's very doable. And last question, I think it's the last question. Yeah, Rabin Scott 20 says, "Are you fluent in the Russian language?" Yes, and if you want to watch me speak Russian or want to learn Russian with my system and my videos, you should go to the second channel where I'll be posting videos in well lots of other languages as well, including Russian. But in the main channel, I won't be doing it anymore because again, it's algorithm poison. It just ruins it. But if you want to see me speak Russian regularly, go to the second channel, right? Anyway, this was pretty interesting, shorter than expected, really. I think I should have left more time for you guys to ask questions. Maybe I'll do I leave like 3 days between posting the Q&A post and then doing the actual video. But I didn't want to spend a whole hour working in the weekend. At least not making a video. I've got things to do. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you Monday.